Right-wing extremists in South Africa have used an armoured truck to storm a building where multi-party talks were being held on the country's future. The 200 armed demonstrators, many belonging to the Afrikaner National Front, waved Nazi-style banners as they forced their way into the conference chamber. An Indian delegate and a black photographer were injured.
A hostile crowd of right-wing demonstrators forced their way into the World Trade Center grounds. It was soon clear their aim was to take over the building in protest of the current round of democracy negotiations.
De Klerk is a traitor. He has traited his own people, the Afrikaner nation.
An armoured car then rammed through the front of the centre, shattering the plate glass entrance. Hundreds of demonstrators poured into the building, most of them uniformed members of the AWB, the Afrikaner resistance movement. Many of them were armed. Police stood by without intervening as the demonstrators took control of the centre. AWB leader Eugene Ter-Blanche and his followers then triumphantly occupied the chamber where government and ANC negotiators had been due to meet. Outside, several thousand white right-wingers laid siege to the World Trade Center, calling for an independent Afrikaner state. Some waved flags from the roof of a police-armed truck. Inside, one of the generals leading the Afrikaner People's Front seemed disturbed at the violent actions of the AWB.
Are you happy about what's happened this morning?
Well, not entirely, but okay. I think we've achieved our purpose. Thank you.
The leaders of the break-in handed over a protest petition to government negotiators demanding a free Afrikaner state.
That we are approaching the time when all our peaceful and balanced efforts are being neglected and are being rejected. And if that is happening, ladies and gentlemen, then surely we will have to apply some force in the achievement of our goals.
Then, after a 2-hour siege, they left, promising more action if their demands weren't met. The government condemned today's actions as bordering on the barbaric and warned they'd only unleash hatred and tension. Jeremy Thompson, ITN, Johannesburg.
Conference chamber, but later left the building.
The right wing in their thousands making their presence felt. Using first a sledgehammer and then an armoured vehicle for a battering ram, members of the neo-Nazi resistance movement, the AWB, stormed the World Trade Center armed with pistols, rifles and shotguns. Here they said they were the law. They had come to demand self-determination for whites in the new South Africa. Their message was clear. If that wasn't given to them, they would take it by force. Within minutes, there was chaos in the council chamber, South Africa's only hope of a negotiated settlement. The cry was Kill Mugabe, a leading ANC activist, at which point leaders of the right entered. First, General Constant Viljoen, former head of South Africa's Defence Force, joined by Ferdy Hartzenberg, Conservative Party leader. And then to the chant of AWB, the AWB leader Eugene Ter-Blanche, who claims God is on his side in his fight against the Antichrist communists of the ANC, God and his Iron Guard. Their slogan for all to see was "One people, one fatherland." After occupying the chamber, the AWB marched into talks with other political leaders who'd retreated down the corridor. We were stopped by the Iron Guard.
You are not in control here.
Sorry? You are not the law and order here, are you?
Yes.
As he left, Eugene Ter-Blanche made his point.
We believe that according to international law, that we have a rightful claim, a just claim on certain parts of this country as our land. We build it up, and it's a sovereign, independent country. We are willingly to share land, but we cannot share power with the communists.
Outside, the police officers who had failed to prevent the right from crashing through. Had they tried, they insisted, there would have been bloodshed.
Should the police have stopped it, in your view?
Of course. What is private property if, in fact, the police can't protect you anymore?
If there is not concerted and clear action taken against the right wing, the ANC will be left with no other option but to take the necessary steps to try and protect the future of our country and the future of the democratic process.
Today we witnessed brute force by men determined to halt political reform.
This, they say, was nothing compared to what will happen on the day an ANC-dominated government is elected in South Africa. John Harrison, BBC News, Johannesburg.
It was a full... Angry white extremists used an armoured car to batter their way through the plate glass windows and into the building where multi-party negotiations were taking place. Self-proclaimed stormtroopers of the AWB, the Afrikaner resistance movement, poured into the centre, many of them heavily armed. Police stood by doing nothing as AWB leader Eugene Ter Blanche and his followers triumphantly occupied the council chamber. They sang and shouted their defiance at multi-party talks and demanded an independent Afrikaner state. They daubed their message of self-determination on the walls.
Force is something that is applied in the defense of a nation, and if it comes to it, we will have to apply that force.
The vigilantes who'd hijacked the talks threatened more to come if their demands weren't met. Still unchallenged by the police, they marched off, leaving South Africa's peace process badly shaken. Jeremy Thompson, ITN, Johannesburg.